If you guys are familiar with my channel or really just familiar with anime content in general, you know that anime takes are quite common in this community. Of course, I'm no exception. I've done hundreds of videos, including TikTok, on different anime takes and things like that. However, today I'm doing a video of ranking every single anime manga that I have seen, and I realize I'm not sure if I've ever done this on YouTube. If I have, it was a long time ago because there's not a recent upload of me doing this. So I was like, how am I gonna have an anime page, and I've never even done my top anime slash Animanga, like all that. So that's what we're doing today. Today we're doing my top Animanga. I'm ranking everything I have ever seen. Let's get to it. So as you can see, we have 68 here. Now, I have probably seen more, but some of them that just I may have started and just did not enjoy just are not on this list, or ones that I may have forgotten about, because Black Lagoon was one of the first animes I've watched, and I really don't remember any of it, so I don't actually have it on here. And there are other anime as well that I started that I just didn't enjoy, and they're not on here either because they're just not worth talking about. These are anime that I've watched an extensive amount of and have a fair enough opinion on. Also, quick disclaimer, obviously this is all my opinion. If you disagree, that's totally fine. Let me know your guys' top anime, and let me know which takes you don't agree with, because I'm sure you guys are not going to agree with all these. But at number 68, we have The Elusive Samurai. Now, to me, I made a video on this. I personally do think this is the worst show I have ever seen in my entire life. I genuinely hate this show. I'm not going to go over all the topics about why I don't like this show in this video, because I did make a whole video on it. Yes, there is a whole video's length of stuff about why I do not like this show. So yeah, if you like the show, whatever, I'm not going to look at you any differently. To me, it is just the worst anime of all time. Next at 6-7, we have Skate the Infinity. Now, apparently this is a hot take. I thought this show was pretty bad. I'm not going to lie. I watched it, and I thought a lot of the characters in the show are pretty terrible. They make no sense, and they're just weird to be weird. Like, there's literally a character who's like, if you beat me in a race, I will be your personal cat. Like, how does that add anything to a story? To me, a lot of the characters in the show are genuinely horrid, other than the main character. And the problem is, the main character for a majority of the show does nothing. He's just the blue-haired guy's coach who's just magically good at skating. The story doesn't even make sense. The characters suck other than the main guy. And the main character doesn't really do anything. It is just, to me, not a great show. But we'll move on to number 66. Now, those are really the only two shows that I have seen that I really do not like. The rest of these shows, honestly, rank way above it. But at 66 here, we have Raid Master. To me, the show's just not good. I think the characters are really cool, but the plot of this show just genuinely makes no sense whatsoever. Like, it's like they genuinely just threw a bunch of shit on the wall and put it into a show. Now, the characters, like I said, are great. The show just really makes no sense, so that's why I have it here. Now, I don't know if the manga is any different. I honestly doubt it, but yeah, the story was so hard to follow, I'm not gonna lie. Characters are pretty cool, though. Now, before we get to 65, if you're enjoying this video, please make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Please hype the video. It helps me out a lot. I upload anime videos 3 times a week, so there's something here for you guys to enjoy, right? With that being said, let's move on to 65, which we have Psyche K. Now, we're at this point where these next few shows that we're doing just aren't for me. I don't think Psyche K is objectively a bad show. I just didn't really find it that funny, and I feel like I have to put it down here because it is the only show in my entire existence that I have fallen asleep while watching. Not I put it on to fall asleep in the background or whatever. I actually fell asleep while watching this show because I was so bored. It's just not my taste, not my sense of humor or whatever. But yeah, just overall wasn't a big fan of it. I don't think it's a bad show by any means. Next at 64, we have Dr. Stone. I don't know. This show to me, I thought was going to be really cool because I thought the plot behind it sounds cool, like rebuilding civilization and all that. But if you watch Dr. Stone, you will realize majority of the time is not being spent rebuilding civilization, which is why I didn't enjoy the show. I feel like more than half of each episode is dedicated to building the characters through comedy, and the comedy in this show is not funny. I don't even want to say it's not for me. I genuinely don't know anybody who would laugh at this type of humor in Dr. Stone. I don't find it funny at all. I think it is very boring when they're not progressing the plot. And a lot of the episodes, they spend more time trying to develop characters than they do progress the plot, at least in the first season. And I find that incredibly boring because their character progression in Dr. Stone is not good whatsoever. I think the actual parts where they are building up civilization, I think is great. I think all the stuff that has to do with the characters, like the stupid shit with the golden spear, that it's just boring. The magician guy or whatever, boring. Like, I don't know, none of the characters really have interesting development or interesting introductions, and then when they try to develop them, it's normally not good. So that's my problem with Dr. Stone. I think the story could be great, especially if you cut out all that pointless character development that's not really development, it's just really bad and awful jokes. Then I think, yeah, Dr. Stone could be pretty good, but I just couldn't get past it. I don't know, it was like way too childish for me almost. Next at 63, we have Shaman King. Now, I only watched the remake, and I watched it with a friend. We watched 4 episodes, and this is one of the worst paced shows I've seen in my entire life. I think the characters look cool, and the kid with the bowl cut, like the blonde-haired kid with the bowl cut, he was sick. But a lot of the characters as well felt pretty bland. It felt like all the creativity in Shaman King was with the design and the fashion. Because don't get me wrong, the designs are sick, the characters look cool and all that. But there wasn't much thought that really went into the characters, I feel like, at least in terms of this anime remake. A lot of the characters just felt very dull and very boring. There wasn't really much to them at all. And like I said, the most interesting character was the little pipsqueak kid. He was pretty awesome. I'll give it to him. But the villain that they introduced at first, boring. His reasonings made no sense. The fights for a show that's about fighting is pretty lame, I'm not going to lie. And the power system just seems like an off-brand JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. So that's really all my problems I had with it. I think the show looks really good, and I think that's about where the positives end. I don't know. Maybe the original is a lot better. I don't know, but I'm not a big fan of the remake at all. Next at 62, we have Kill la Kill. Now, I didn't put this here necessarily because it's a bad show. I actually think Kill la Kill is a relatively good show. I think the problem is Kill la Kill is a show that put so much effort into everything, except it's all going into a pretty stupid story, if I have to be honest. Like, I'm sorry, but the main plot of the story about wearing as little clothes as possible, that is pretty stupid. Also, the main reason I do have it low is because this is a show impossible to watch in public. It's impossible to even watch in my room, because if somebody walks in and sees me watching this, they're gonna think I'm straight up watching porn, and I'm not doing that. So I have to watch it in my bed, and I don't really watch anything in my bed. I use my bed to sleep. So yeah, that's another reason why I have it so low. It's almost impossible for me to watch because I have to watch it in my bed, and the story is pretty stupid, so it's also not good enough for me to want to lay down and watch, if that makes sense. But if you look at the characters and the action and the animation and the music, like, they put so much effort in that. Like, these characters are genuinely so phenomenally written. It is just so unfortunate they are trapped in this story. If they actually put a real story around these characters, this could be one of the greatest anime of its time, and arguably one of the greatest anime ever. But the story is just so incredibly, I guess, vulgar would be the word, that it just doesn't rank higher. Next at 61, we have Dandadan. If you've ever seen my takes, you know why I don't like Dandadan, and it's really because the start, I hear all the stuff after is great, and sure, but I'm not gonna lie, it's hard to get through a show when the first like 5 or 6 episodes is about 2 minors. One of them is like half the episodes are about a little boy's dick and balls. I really don't want to watch that, I'm gonna be honest. And an old fucking granny's trying to eat his balls. That shit is weird. I just don't understand how people like that. And then the other half of it is about Momo, in which, especially the first episode, it is in the nicest way possible, her just getting sexually assaulted. A little girl, by the way, just getting sexually assaulted. Like, that's what the whole first episode is about. And then how many times do they get half naked or kiss, or like so much sexual shit is brought up? I'm not gonna lie, it's just an uncomfortable watch. I just don't want to watch kids do this. Like, it is very weird. Like, I don't know. To me, very strange show. Now, I hear that doesn't really happen later on, but I'm not forcing myself to sit through the uncomfortableness of that to get to that. Because to me, as well, the story doesn't even really sound all that interesting. And like I said, from the 5 or 6 episodes I watched, it just, the action was really great. Don't get me wrong, that's why it made it up here. But yeah, I just can't get past all the weird themes. It's a very uncomfortable watch. Next at 60, we have Doraemon. I just have this here because this show just does not age well. The older you get, the worse this show gets. It's not quite the same as other kids shows. As a kid, I love this show, but if I go back and watch it now, oh my god, is it a snooze fest. Like, this really is just a show for little kids, and that's it. And that's fine, you know, it does its job, but I'm not a little kid anymore, so it's not going to rank high. Next at 59, we have Sword Art Online. I think similar to a lot of people, this is one of their first anime they've watched. I think this was the 2nd or 3rd anime I had actually seen. And for Sword Art, Season 1 was phenomenal. I love Season 1 so much. And then when I got to Season 2, I was like, holy shit, this is one of the biggest pieces of dog shit I've ever seen. And I hear with Sword Art, it does have its ups and downs. Like, some seasons are really bad and some are really good. And I'm just not putting myself through that, right? I dropped it, I think, in Season 3 just because Season 2 was so horrid. I just couldn't watch it anymore. Now, further information I received, like this was the guy's first ever work and he didn't expect it to do this good. Like this is kind of his practice run. So I can't really blame him, and I don't, but I just do not enjoy really anything that I watched after season 1. Next at 58, we have Attack on Titan. Now, this is going to be a hot take for a lot of people, and I've talked about this before in plenty of videos. I just do not like Titans. I find them incredibly boring. I think the characters are pretty good. I don't think the cast of characters is, like, the best ever, but they are really good. Like, I like most of the characters, right? I think the animation is pretty good for the most part. Voice acting is good and all that, and I think the plot points surrounding Titans are very, very entertaining. The problem is I just find Titans so incredibly boring, and I don't want to spend most of this time talking about why, because it's a pretty long explanation, and I've done it in a video before. I can't remember which one, so I do apologize for that, and it's definitely on my TikTok, but that's besides the point. I just really don't like Titans, so this is a show just not for me. If this wasn't about Titans and it was about something else, this could potentially be like one of my favorite shows ever, but like to me, they just ruin the story. I just find them so boring and uninspiring. I just hate it. I really hate everything to do with the Titans. When it's not about the Titans, that is the most interesting part to me, but it's Attack on Titan. The show's about Titans almost all the time, so that's why it ranks so low. If it wasn't so heavily involved, I'd probably like the show way more. Next at 57, similar here. I think Titans are similar to this aspect. I have Gurren Lagann. Now again, another show, this is going to be a hot take for a lot of people. I hate mechs, which is a big reason why I hate Titans, because the Titans are pretty much like zombies or mechs, depending on which Titan you look at. And so I really do hate mech shows too. To me, mechs, Titans, zombies, those three are probably some of the worst tropes in anime. And I'm just staying away from watching any shows like that because they are so boring. I feel like they suck the life out of everything you watch. Like Gurren Lagann, when you watch it, you're like, oh my god, these characters are phenomenal. Some of the greatest characters in all of anime come from Gurren Lagann, and the animation is beautiful. The problem I have with it is when the mech starts getting heavily involved. At the beginning where the mech is little or whatever, it's fine. Once it becomes everything's about the mech, the show, in my opinion, just falls off really hard. Like, I just don't care about it anymore. Like, it makes me lose all my care in the world because you're wanting me to care about a stupid robot. I don't give a shit. No offense to the show. I just don't. And I think the characters are great. And this is another show for me that, if not about mechs, could genuinely be in my top 10. Now, I do plan on revisiting this show eventually, and maybe my disdain for mechs will go away, but I really do doubt it, and that's why it ranks so low. Next at 56, we have Assassination Classroom. For Assassination Classroom, I just think this show's pretty forgettable. I remember watching the show. It's the first anime I actually ever finished, and I remember finishing it, and I was like, wow, that was pretty good. The only episode I remember is the last episode. I literally don't remember anything else from this show. I remember enjoying it, but it's just really forgettable. It's not bad by any means, but it's a pretty forgettable show, so that's why it ranks so low. Next at 55, we have Tsukimichi Moonlight Fantasy. Now, for me, this is an isekai. I'm not a big fan of isekais, right? But I decided to give this a watch. I didn't even know it was an isekai, I'll be honest. But I was pleased. For an isekai, it definitely broke my standards and expectations. But at the end of the day, the story of this show is just not really great. I think the humor in this show is hilarious. The action is actually pretty good as well. But the big thing for me is that the story is not that good. It's just not really that interesting. I don't really care to follow the story. I like the characters a lot, and I like a lot of the fights that happen and stuff, but yeah, just not a big fan of the overall story of this show, but I think it's pretty solid, and I'll probably finish it eventually, but as of now, after finishing Season 1 and 2, I don't really have any plans on coming back to it when Season 3 drops. Moving on to 54, we have Demon Slayer. Now, I think Demon Slayer is a solid show. I think it's a great beginner anime. My problem with it is it's very basic. The action, to me, isn't even that good either. I know the show gets praised for its animation, but my problem is I can't see half the shit going on, and I have this problem with a lot of newer anime. They focus on the flashiness and impact frames and stuff. You don't see that shit when you're watching unless you watch in slow motion or pause it. So to me, I'm not a big fan of that. I feel like Demon Slayer suffers from that animation-wise. Like, it's just a lot of pretty colors, bright lights, and shit. And to me, I'm not seeing what's going on, right? Now, they do get better in some aspects, like Entertainment District, such a phenomenal arc, and the best part of Demon Slayer, for sure. And I felt like that was probably the peak of their animation level. And a lot of the other stuff, it's just like, it's almost too much going on animation-wise. So that's why I don't have it higher for that reason. And then story-wise, I mean, I don't think anybody's going to try to argue Demon Slayer is like the most phenomenal story ever, because it's just not. It's very basic. There's a lot of different shows that follow a similar pattern to this, and I think the big part with Demon Slayer is there's no emotion in the show. Like, Tanjiro himself has no emotion, and every time he shows emotion, it just feels so incredibly forced. It doesn't feel like natural emotion written into the show. And sure, whatever. But it's a simple show, and I don't think simple is necessarily bad. People may have it lower. Like, people that shit on Demon Slayer, I get why, but I don't think simple is necessarily bad, but simple is not going to reach the top, if that makes sense. So I just think it's a pretty simple show, and it's solid, but there's definitely better. Next at 53, we have Blue Exorcist. To me, Blue Exorcist is strange because if you don't know, the manga just finished, and apparently the manga is a prequel to what's about to happen, and it's been going on for like 10 plus years. Crazy, by the way. I don't know about the manga. I'm just talking about the anime here. And for Blue Exorcist, for me, it's like you have two amazing characters, probably two of the best characters in manga, in Shura and Rin. And that's about it for where the show goes. The power system is pretty cool too, but the fights are a bit lackluster for a show about fighting. The animation is pretty basic for its time, I get. I haven't seen the newer season, so I don't know, but seasons 1 and 2 are pretty basic. And a lot of the other characters are pretty boring, not very likable, and the story is kind of hard to follow sometimes. It's a little bit confusing on what really their goal or purpose is. And so, yeah, I think Rin and Shura definitely carry this show. And it has good moments, don't get me wrong. Seasons 3 and 4 might be phenomenal. I don't know, although I have not heard good things about them. But seasons 1 and 2 are a little bit hard to follow and not really structured. Next at 52, we have Fairy Tail. Fairy Tail to me is like the purest definition of mid, but it has so many good moments that I have it higher than some shows because really, like I said, only the first 2 shows I would actually consider bad. Everything else here I'd consider at least above a 5 out of 10. And Fairy Tail, no different, but I think you could argue it's like the definition of mid because Fairy Tail to me is literally 50% of it is awesome and 50% of it is horrible. Like, I've seen people defend this arc and I don't understand how. I think Daedalus arc is one of the worst arcs in anime history. I found that arc incredibly boring, and there was times that I literally debated just skipping the entire arc because it was so boring. I hated that arc. I'm not gonna lie, I don't really get why people like it, but if you do, you do. However, and then on the other hand, you have an arc like Tower of Heaven, which in my opinion is one of the greatest arcs in anime history. Tower of Heaven is phenomenal. It is probably a top 10 arc in anime history, and it comes from Fairy Tail. Like, that's crazy. I think the characters are great. I think the story is decent, right? It's just half the time the arcs are amazing and half the time they're really terrible. And I think that's Fairy Tail's big problem is there's no consistency in how good the show is. So that's why it ranks this low. Next at 51, we have Pokemon. Now, this is a similar thing to Fairy Tail, except it's not really half and half. But just there are some parts of Pokemon that just aren't really that good. Namely, the Sun and Moon series, other than the one that's like about, it's not the Sun and Moon one, but it's like the one after Sun and Moon, the one where B fights Machamp. That one's decent. But like the X and Y ones, I wasn't a fan of. People glaze X and Y just because they were kids back then. I've went and rewatched all of them. It really is like a downward hill for a while, and then it just like spikes randomly. Like Indigo League, phenomenal. Diamond and Pearl, phenomenal as well. I liked Black and White, but I get why people don't like it. X and Y was pretty bad. Sun and Moon was pretty bad. And then every now and then you'll get like a good one in between. So it's just, again, a lot of inconsistencies with Pokemon, but it's solid anime. Next at number 50, we have D. Gray Man. To me, the show just feels like a rip-off Full Metal Alchemist. And that's not why it ranks so low, because Full Metal is a great show to rip off. If you're going to rip off of a show, Full Metal is definitely one of the ones that would be very interesting, right? But I think the problem with this show is everything after season 1. I thought season 1 was pretty good, but then it really, you start to see or notice the bad things about D. Gray Man once you get to season 2. A lot of the issues were there in season 1, but season 2 is when they really come to light. The pacing is just not very good. There is not really that many likable characters. I think Alan Walker, Lena Lee, and Tiki Mick are really the only 3. I feel like everybody else in the show is just not really that interesting. I also feel like the show drops off story-wise once you get introduced to Crowry, because after all the vampire shit, I'm not gonna lie, the story just becomes kind of like, what is even going on anymore? Like, we had a clear path, now we don't have a clear path, and it's just kind of all over the place, like, once season 2 starts. So yeah, that's why I have it this low. Also, it suffers from, it looks basic as hell for a manga that is incredibly detailed. The animation really did it no justice. I get it's old, but it just looks like every other 2000s anime. The voice acting is really terrible, and the music production is basic as fuck as well. So that's why it ranks so low. I do still think it's kind of fun to watch, but it definitely has a lot of issues, and I think does deserve a remake. I think with a remake, a lot of these problems get solved. Next, at 49, we have Slayers. I have Slayers this low because it's a pretty fun show to watch, but that's about it. It's like got the fun vibes of OG Dragon Ball, but not really much of a story. There is a story there, don't get me wrong, but it's not anything to ride home about. Like, it's just, there's a story there just to progress the show. Like, that's pretty much it. It's more of like a fun little comedy show. It's not really the funniest show you'll watch, but it is pretty funny. It has pretty decent action moments. Like I said, I'd compare it to OG Dragon Ball. It's a pretty fun show to watch. There's just no real depth there. Next, at 48, we have One Punch Man. Now, One Punch Man Season 1 was phenomenal. Season 2, I even thought was good, even though it did get quite a lot of hate because it was a setup season, and setup seasons are always going to get hate. And I was like, oh, you know, don't worry, Season 3 is going to pay this off. It'll be great. But not only does it take 6 years in between each season for 12 episodes, which is absolutely ridiculous and makes no sense whatsoever, but the setup season set up another setup season. So Season 2 was basically wasted into nothing, in my opinion. So everything that I defended about Season 2 before, just out the window. All it did was introduce the best character in the show, which is Garo. And other than that, Season 2 didn't do anything at this point. It set up nothing. And then Season 3 being a setup, and one of the worst setups I've seen in my entire life, one of the worst anime of the 2020s, it was laughable. It was just absolutely terrible. And it was laughable. I mean, people were joking about it. It was horrible, and I agree with them. And so I'm disappointed because then Season 2 ends up becoming a whole lot of nothing because Season 3 was a whole lot of nothing. So really, you only have one season of a good show that is a phenomenal manga and should be way better, and it's really disappointing. So yeah, this is a disappointment pick. That's why it went this low. Next, at 47, we have Vinland Saga. This is another one, just not my cup of tea. I don't like Vikings. I think Viking stories are really, 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 really boring. And I really only like Thorfinn. So, and I get he's the main character, but there are episodes that aren't about Thorfinn. And those episodes to me are really boring. I just don't really like them. Like, I don't care for Askeladd. I don't care for Thorkel or any of them. And I don't think they're bad characters. I just don't care for them. Thorfinn's really the only guy I like. So when I'm not seeing Thorfinn on my screen, I'm not enjoying it. So that's why I do have it here. I think objectively it is a great show, but just not for me. You know, I didn't really think I was going to like it. I ended up loving Thorfinn, but the actual show, yeah, I'm just not the biggest fan of because it's not Thorfinn 24/7 and I don't care for the other people. Next, at 46, we have Solo Leveling. I just want to remind you guys at this point that I do still actually like all of these shows. The first two are really the only ones I don't like. But anyway, we have Solo Leveling, and Solo Leveling, to me, it is one of those ones where just because it's simple doesn't mean it's bad. Does this show have any depth? Fuck no. Does this show have any character development? Fuck no. Does this show even have any likable characters other than the main character? Fuck no. It doesn't. It doesn't have any of that. But you've got good aura moments. You've got good fights. Whatever. It's a turn your brain off anime and enjoy it for a little bit, and that's why it ranks where it does. Do I think it is a great show by any means? Absolutely not. And by the time I watch more anime, if I've seen every anime in the world, do I think this even finishes top 100? Probably not. I mean, it's a decent show, don't get me wrong, but there are just a lot better, and it's simple, and which again doesn't make it bad, but you just can't be great and be simple. Next, at 45, we have Ultimate Exorcist Kyoshi. You get what happened there. So this is the first manga we have on here, actually. I think this manga is hilarious. I actually picked up a few copies while in Japan. Now, yeah, I can't read it because it's in Japanese, but still, I thought it was pretty awesome. This is one of the only things I've ever read that actually made me laugh out loud. I don't really like reading because I feel like I don't really get much emotion evoked from reading, but I do try to read manga every now and then. But this one was different. It actually made me laugh while reading something, which I was like, that's pretty impressive. Because I can feel some other emotions while reading, but I've never laughed at a manga before or even a comic book or anything like that. But Ultimate Exorcist Kyoshi, hilarious. I really hope this gets an anime just because it would be a top tier comedy anime for sure. I think the story around it is solid too, but how funny it is, honestly, is just really the big thing for me. Next, at 44 here, we have Rurouni Kenshin. Yes, I have to talk about this every time, and I should. The creator of this show is an absolute piece of shit. I 100% agree. But it would be a lie to say that this was not a super influential manga / anime. And after, learning about that, I'm like, well, I will give it a try. And it's solid. I really don't get how it's as influential as it was. Probably just because it's old as shit, but it's not like the greatest thing you'll ever watch. It is decent, don't get me wrong. The characters are solid, but it's really not the greatest thing you'll ever watch. It's just overall a decent show. I don't really have anything that bad to say about it. but I don't have anything that good to say about it either. It's just decent. Next at 43, we have Windbreaker. Now, these delinquent type shows, which I realized Tokyo Revengers I didn't add to the list for some reason. Anyway, that's besides the point. It would have ranked lower than this. Windbreaker, it is one of those delinquent shows, and I'm not gonna lie, I don't understand how the delinquent genre is even a thing. It's not really interesting, I will be honest. But Windbreaker is, in my opinion, arguably the best anime-wise. I don't know about any of the different manga, but anime-wise is probably the best delinquent one, and that is really just because of Haruka Sakura, the main character. He is a phenomenal main character. Now, I don't know if that's because everybody around him is bad, but he's also really the only likable character in the show. I think all the other characters in the show are pretty boring other than him, so it could just be he's surrounded by bad, which makes him look so good. But he is a really, really fun character to watch and follow. His growth in just episodes, like you can see from episode 1 to episode 4, he has character growth and it feels great. He is a character that is genuinely so fun to watch, and the animation is pretty solid in this too. Story isn't really the greatest and the other characters aren't that great, but he's just such a good main character. Like, he actually can carry the show to be enjoyable, so that's why I have it this high. Next at 42, we have Baki. I think Baki has cool fights and is funny, sure, but the story of Baki, not really great. A lot of the characters in Baki kind of suck. And it's really goofy sometimes. Sometimes it's over the top, and that's why people do love it, but that's also why it's not that great. But it is a fun watch, so that's why it ranked this high. I don't think it's really bad at all, but again, it's just not great by any means, but it's a fun watch. You know, if you just want to watch something a bit funny and goofy, then Baki's the way to go, but yeah, it definitely doesn't go higher. Next at 41, we have Chainsaw Man. Now, I know a lot of people are going to get mad. I haven't read the manga, but anime-wise, I feel like Chainsaw Man is just solid so far. I mean, we're not really into anything. Like, the actual story of Chainsaw Man hasn't even really started yet. We've kind of got hints and peeks at it, you know, talking about the Gun Devil, which is what the first part is about, if I'm not mistaken. And yeah, we've just had bits and pieces, I'm not gonna lie. Most of it has just been showing off the characters, which are okay. I don't think there's really only two characters that stand out to me in Chainsaw Man, and they were both introduced in the Rize movie. I don't think any of the other characters are bad. Other than Himino, I hate Himino. Other than her, all the other characters are decent. But they have really only two standout characters so far, which in my opinion is Rize and Beam. I think Rize and Beam... Now, Rize, depth-wise, is like one of the best characters written so far in the anime. Beam is just awesome. Like, if you don't like Beam, I just don't trust you. But anyway, other than that, yeah, they really only have two characters to me that are really hitting it home right now. And I know a lot of them have a lot more development to come, but so far in Chainsaw Man, we're just getting kind of a sneak peek of everything. I feel like the Rize movie kind of really propelled it forward so far, but yeah, we're kind of just at a sneak peek of what's really to come, so that's why I do have it so low. I think a lot of people will overrate the anime, because let's be honest, not much has happened. The action scenes are cool, sure, but yeah, not much has really happened yet, so that's why it's not going higher. Next, at 40, we have Death Note. Now, when you talk to a Death Note fan, they just act like the second half of this show doesn't exist, and I would too. I get it. I think the first half, everything L versus Light, is literally perfect. I don't think you could argue anything bad about that part. Now, after it's about being L versus Light, it sucks. It genuinely sucks. It's not even like, oh, well, there's some problems, this and that. No, it is terrible. Everything after L versus Light, in my opinion, is just horrible. I just can't watch it. Also, I'm not a big fan of Misa, but that doesn't really pertain. I just thought I'd mention that. I don't really like her. But anyway, yeah, Death Note, I think if you are just talking about the first half of Death Note, which is L versus Light, it is literal perfection. And if it ended after that, top 10 anime, most likely. But the fact that they decided to keep going sucked. It sucks. It actually is so bad. The only interesting stuff is with Light. All the other characters that are involved at that point are just horrible to watch. And obviously a big part of why Light is so likable even at that point is all the shit he did with L. If he never had L, like if you just removed the first half and only had the second half, this show would have been awful. So yeah, that's why Death Note is here. Perfect first half, bad second half. Next at 39, we have Fate Zero. This is the only Fate show I watch. And in my opinion, I think Season 2 of Fate Zero was genuinely incredible. I think it was phenomenal. And Season 2 of Fate Zero is why people watch Fate. Season 1, however, I don't think it was bad, but it felt really unnecessary. I think both seasons are 12 episodes, by the way. Season 1 of Fate could have genuinely been 2 to 4 episodes, and it could have covered everything that happened during that time and been a lot more interesting. And they could have cut out half the shit that happened in season 1 because it just didn't matter at all for the actual story, and it felt pretty pointless. If you shorten season 1 and just put it at the beginning of season 2, I think Fate Zero moves up a ton. I just think the first half of Fate Zero, it's not bad, it's just kind of boring a lot of times. There's not really much interesting things happening going on there. That was really horrible English. And until you get like the big character push of Kiritsugu, which is pretty much all of season 2, it's just not really that great. And if Kiritsugu wasn't in Fate Zero, the show would be terrible. I mean, Kiritsugu does a heavy carry job. He is one of the best main characters I've ever seen. He actually is phenomenal. I wish all of Fate was about Kiritsugu, and I would have watched it all. I just am not real confident that the other characters are going to be on his level, because he is way more well-written than everybody else in Fate Zero, which, yeah, is no surprise. I mean, Kiritsugu, phenomenal character. Season 2 of Fate Zero, phenomenal. Season 1 was just right? So that's why I ranked it here. Still a good show, though. Next at 38, we have Undead Unluck. So I haven't finished the show yet, which is why it kind of ranks here. But so far, I would have it over everything behind it. And that's because every episode of this show so far, very funny. Actually progressing a unique story that hasn't really been done before. So we're seeing something that we've never seen. It's interesting every episode. It doesn't feel slow. There doesn't really feel like there's many like plot holes or anything. It has good animation. It's funny. The voice acting is good. All of that. So it has just a bunch of positives. I just haven't finished it. The show's obviously not over anyway. So I'm not sure where it would go even if I am caught up. But the show's not over. There's a lot more to come from it, and it's just super unique and super interesting, which is why it lands itself here, and it's really funny, so that's why as well. Next at 37, we have Bleach. Now, this might be a hot take for a lot of people, but this is just the original Bleach. I haven't watched 1000 Year Blood War yet, and I have a lot of problems with the original Bleach that do kind of get ignored by the community, I feel like. Whenever I talk about Bleach, people don't, they just act like the stuff that I saw just didn't happen. Now, a big problem with Bleach is I've heard a lot about it. Not spoilers or anything, but I just hear like, oh, wait till you get to this part, wait till you get to this part, and I'm always disappointed. The big one specifically is Ulquiorra versus Ichigo. That fight was like 2 episodes, and it was literally just one side overpowers the other until he practically kills the other side, and then the other side gets a brand new bullshit plot armor power-up and then fucking dominates him instead. It wasn't really that interesting. Now, I get why people like it because all the character development of Ulquiorra, but Ulquiorra went from, oh, I have no emotion to, oh, I might have some emotion. So again, yes, it was cool, but it wasn't, I still do think it's a little overrated. But my big thing with Bleach is like, my biggest issue and the reason why it doesn't rank higher is because all the best moments of Bleach, like even Ulquiorra versus Ichigo, it is a good moment. I think it's overrated, but it's a good moment. It is 2 episodes. Yet you have the worst moments of Bleach, like for example, let's talk about the Bount arc. That arc is longer than almost every arc in Bleach. Why? It's not even canon, first of all, and it's terrible. So why is that? Why are the long parts of Bleach the worst parts? And then if you want to go to canon stuff as well, because I ignore filler when I watch shows, I'm not going to blame filler on a show being bad because it's just not a part of it. The Uryu and Renji fight versus the Salazzle guy or whatever, the pink-haired Espada, that's the longest fight in original Bleach if I'm not mistaken, and it is by far the worst fight in Bleach, one of the worst fights in anime history. That fight is so boring. If Pesce wasn't in it, I would have dropped Bleach after like episode 5 of it. It was so bad, and that's how all of Bleach is. Like, all of the bad parts are incredibly long, and all of the good parts are incredibly short. Why was Grimmjow versus Ichigo 2 in Hueco Mundo like an episode or 2? That's the most balanced fights for Ichigo. Like, Ichigo and Grimmjow are like the same level. That fight could have gone on for 10, 15 episodes and been enjoying the entire time. But no, it ends after 2 to 3 episodes, and then we have to watch Uryu and Dipshit do whatever for 10 more episodes. Like, I don't get it. Why is all the good stuff so short and all the long stuff is so bad? I really just do not get it. That is my problem with Bleach. It's like the pacing needs to be flipped. Make the good stuff long, make the bad stuff short. Everything with Ichigo, who, by the way, is probably the best character in Bleach, or definitely top 3, his shit is always short. Everything Ichigo does is like an episode or 2. And then everything Uryu does, who in my opinion is the worst character in all of fiction, which I made a video about that too, if you guys want to go check that out. I think Uryu's the worst character in all of fiction, and his shit is so long. Everything to do with Uryu is so long, and the stuff with Ichigo is so short, and Ichigo, I think unbiasedly you can say is a top 3, top 5 character in Bleach, and he's the main character, and his stuff is the shortest. That to me is just something I don't understand. How are the good stuff and the important stuff in Bleach so short, and the boring and non-important things so long? If it was flipped the other way, this could genuinely be a top 10 show for me, because I think the plot of this show, it has one of the greatest and most unique plots in anime history. The problem is the plot spends half the time dealing with bullshit than it does actual important and cool moments. So yeah, that's my big problem with Bleach. Sorry, that was a little bit of a Bleach rant there, but let's move on to 36, which we have Beyblade. I think Beyblade is a pretty solid show. I've only seen like the first 4 Beyblades, and all of them you get... Oh, sorry, I need to take a breath real quick. Like, I need to breathe. Anyway, Beyblade is like... my brain's not here yet. You just have characters that are super likable, very good action, and once you get to the Metal series, you realize that, like, okay, it's not just a kid show. Like, there's actual impactful stuff that goes on here. I mean, ever since they introduced Ryuga in the Metal series, it really shows, like, okay, this isn't just a kid show. Like, you can enjoy this at any age. Is it primarily for kids? Yes, it is. But it is enjoyable for all ages. I mean, for God's sake, Ryuga tried to kill Jinga's father, and he thought he did. Like, they were genuinely sliming dude's father out in the first season of the show, and that introduced a rage. Jinga was about to kill him, like, literally kill him. It really builds a good show here, so that's why Beyblade ranks here. Next at 35, we have Cyberpunk Edgerunners. I think very solid show. I just think it's very short. I think the ending's a little overrated, and yeah, I think there could be better characters as well. I think Maine, David, and Lucy are really the only good characters. I know people like Rebecca, but that's genuine just like weird behavior. She does nothing. But that's besides the point. I'm not going to get into that again. But for Cyberpunk Edgerunners, I think the story's great. I think it's just short, and it's not as emotional as other stuff. I'm also not a biggest fan of the designs. I don't really like a lot of the designs in Cyberpunk. And I'm not a big Cyberpunk aesthetic type guy anyway. So that's why it's a little lower for me. I mean, the show... It doesn't really cater to people like me, but I still thought it was a really great story, so that's why it ranks here. It's just a little short and not the most for me. Next at 34, we have Golden Kamuy. This is a show where the story is just hella confusing half the time. I feel like they just forget that they're in the middle of a plot, but it's hilarious, and the characters are great. And I heard the more you watch, the better it gets, which I'm on season 3, and I don't know if I agree with that. I think season 1's definitely better than season 2. Now, season 3, is a little bit better than season 2. But, yeah, I would say that the story's just confusing. If the story was a little bit more, like, packed in and made more sense as you were watching, this could be a lot higher of a show, genuinely. Next at 33, we have Boruto. Not the anime. I know this is a picture of the anime, but the anime's dog shit. We all know that. The manga for Boruto's not bad, especially Twin Blue Vortex. If you don't know, the original Boruto was written by somebody else, not by Kishimoto. I think that's his name. Yeah. But he's doing Twin Blue Vortex. Oh my god, that's so much better. And he is somehow fixing all the shit from Boruto. So, now the Boruto manga is definitely better than the anime, but it's still not amazing by any means. But Twin Blue Vortex is genuinely becoming amazing slowly, because he's basically rewriting and fixing all the shit that happened in the original Boruto, because that shit was trash. And the manga, it was okay, but anime was garbage. So that's why it ranks here, because of the manga, not the anime. Next at 32, we have Holy Land. Now, this is a manga that I also have not finished yet. I'm pretty close, but my problem with Holy Land, and the reason I don't think it's way better, is it is just super heavy, and I think that's a problem with a lot of, like, really popular manga. They're very heavy, and they have a good story. Holy Land's a great story, but it's kind of depressing, and there's a lot of really strong themes in manga like this, and to me, it's like, it makes it hard to finish it, because you can really only read a couple of chapters a day and be like, damn, man, this is hitting kind of hard, which is really good, yes, don't get me wrong, but I'm not gonna lie, man, you watch stories and you experience stories to feel better in life, and I'm not gonna lie, reading Holy Land sometimes makes you feel like a piece of shit, so... I think that's kind of the problem, and an actual problem that I have with it that's not just opinion related is, holy yap, whenever they're in any fight, like, he explains the martial art detail to, like, the cell dude, he explains how this affects your cellular structure and shit, and I'm like, I'm just not reading all that. Like, it genuinely, they explain, like, a karate kick, and he genuinely takes up, like, 15 pages just explaining how the kick works. Like, brother, I get it, you know a lot about the martial arts shit, but I just really don't care that much, and I get this probably a personal thing, but like, holy yap, we did not need all that. Anyway, let's move on to 31, which we have The Fable. This is what I'm currently watching, and I think the show is really, 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 really good. It is hilarious. It has a pretty unique story. It's not the most unique, like there's stuff similar to it, but there's not really another anime like it. And yeah, I think it's super funny. Animation's cool. I like the story. The voice acting's great. My problem and the reason it's not higher, because not only am I not caught up quite yet, but the episodes about the sister, because there are some episodes that primarily focus on her, they just suck. Like, she just takes advantage of people the whole time, and not to say it's not interesting the first time, but that's like every episode is kind of the same with her. At least when you're following the main guy, he is a lot more interesting. He does different things every episode. She kind of does the same thing every episode. So whenever it's an episode about her, you already know what it's going to be about, and it's not always the most entertaining. She's also not nearly as funny as the main guy. She can be funny at times, though, don't get me wrong. But yeah, her episodes are a little bit more boring, so that's why it's not higher. But next at 30, we have Monster. Again, this is going to be another hot take, but I don't care. I'm tired of people pretending like Monster's pacing isn't shit. It is terrible. There are episodes of Monster. Now, the story, characters, and everything like that, genuinely phenomenal, masterpiece. If only the pacing was better, this would be in my top 10. This is one of the worst paced shows I've seen in my entire life. And whenever I say that, the big Monster fans are just like, oh, you just don't get it. No, I do fucking get it. That's the problem. That's why the pacing is so bad, because they just constantly hammer the same thing in your head over and over and over again. Like, I get it, bro. After the 20th time, I get it. Tenma's a good guy. Because that's what most episodes are about in Monster. The episodes that, like, I don't want to call them filler because they're technically not. There are a lot of episodes that could count as filler. For example, there's a whole episode where he is hitchhiking with Dieter, and they need a ride, and this foreign couple picks them up and whatever, and their car breaks down. And so the whole episode is them broken down on the side of the road. Eventually Tenma gets gas for them, walks back with the gas, and then, you know, helps them out. And then they get to the town, find out Tenma's a criminal, and be like, oh, but he's a nice guy, he probably didn't do it. That's what happens in a whole 24-minute episode. And I know what you're thinking. Oh, you know, it's just showing character development for Tenma and Dieter, except that's probably the 15th time we've had an episode like that already. There are so many episodes that it is just Tenma and Dieter, or just Tenma, just doing something nice for somebody. They find out that he's wanted for murder, and they're like, oh, but there's no way he did that. He's such a nice guy. There are so many episodes like that, and they could just straight up be omitted. They could just be cut out. Like, it just is so slow sometimes. And I like the show. I think the story is great, but those episodes really, really make it hard to watch, because it's like, I've seen this already. I know he's a good guy, and I know it's to build it up or whatever to the big fall or whatever, because Tenma, he's going to try to kill Johan and everything like that. Like, that's his goal. But I know he's a good guy. He's a fucking doctor, and he was a high-rated doctor for his performances. He was, like, they show the corrupt side, and they show he wasn't on it. You know from, like, episode 5, this guy is an incredible person, but they just feel the need to reiterate it 30 different ways, 30 different times, and to me, the pacing is just so bad, and it still ranks as high even with the pacing this bad, because the story is phenomenal. The characters are amazing. The story, it's one of the best written stories of all time, but man, does the pacing just suck. It is so slow. It is like the slowest show you will ever watch in your life. I genuinely don't know if I can think of a show that is slower. It is so incredibly slow. If it wasn't this slow, it would probably be in my top 5, genuinely, because the story is so good. It's so good. But anyway, let's move on to number 29, which we have Dragon Ball. Now, Dragon Ball I have here, it's probably the best example of what we talked about before. That simple is good, but it's just not great. Because with Dragon Ball, a lot of the character development, a lot of the storytelling happens in OG Dragon Ball. Then in Dragon Ball Z, they have some of it, but towards the end, especially by the Buu Saga, they threw it all out the window, and Super is none of it. Super is just hype moments, transformations, and fan service fights. That's pretty much all it is. The only character in Dragon Ball that changes for the better at all throughout the entire series is Vegeta. Goku is the same guy from day one. He just gets stronger. Everybody else in the show is pretty much the same person from day one. They just get stronger. The only person who changes character-wise is probably the androids and Vegeta. And the androids, yeah, they probably do change for the better if I'm being honest, but they become so much less important that it doesn't really matter. Also, you have a whole main cast of characters that come from the original Dragon Ball. immediately demoted to hold him off till Goku gets here. You have it's like 9 characters that were so built upon in the original Dragon Ball, had character development, and were going to be important to the story, turned into let's just fuck around and do nothing until Goku gets here. And so you only have one character at this point in the story that has any sort of positive development, and that's Vegeta. Everybody else is the same character as they've been since introduced that is important, except maybe Gohan. But I have a whole video about why Gohan ruins Dragon Ball, and if you watch that video, I'm sure you will agree with all of my takes, because Gohan is terrible. I hate Gohan, and I just don't know how you could argue Gohan being a good character, and he changes for the worst. So you only have 2 important characters that change it all, and one is for the extreme worst, and one is for the extreme best. So to me, that's why it ranks so low. If you had more character development, this is a phenomenal show. It has some of the greatest fights ever. It has some of the most interesting and unique transformations. And I will say, I'm going to argue an argument that I see a lot, and it's like, oh, but Dragon Ball inspired this, Dragon Ball inspired that. I don't give a fuck. Like, I always hate that argument when I see stuff like that. The reason why shows should be higher, it's like, oh, it inspired this, it inspired that. I don't care. Yeah, I'm grading the show that I watched, not what it inspired. You get what I'm saying? And I think Dragon Ball is amazing, and I love Dragon Ball. I grew up on Dragon Ball, and all of these shows, like most of the shows that we've been through already, I actually do thoroughly enjoy. I really do enjoy Dragon Ball. And of course, am I going to watch the next season of Super? Absolutely. I love Dragon Ball. It's great. It's just, it can't rank higher just because of how simple it is. And, you know, it makes sense that Vegeta's the best character, and most people think Vegeta's the best character because he's the only guy that actually has, like, development in the show. But let's move on to 28. We have Devil May Cry. Now, the video game fans, which I've talked about this before, these type of people piss me off. They're like, oh, well, it's not faithful to the video game. Like, holy fucking dunderhead rock for brains. That shit pisses me off because think about it like this. Devil May Cry, your approach to make an anime, and they're like, hey, we want you to, you know, make a story about the games, and we want you to follow the games exactly. You know what any director is going to tell you when you get asked that? No, just go play the game. And that's what I'm telling you. Like, the people that watch this anime and hate on it because it's not just like the games, go play the fucking game. Go watch the fucking game. Watch a story synopsis of the game, because guess what, buddy? Why are they wasting millions of dollars on a product to just copy and paste it? It is pointless. I genuinely don't understand how people think anybody is ever going to put money into that. Why? Why? Especially if the rumors are true and they are remaking all the Devil May Cry games, so you can't even have the excuse of like, oh, well, it's so old and it's outdated, because that's getting done. Like, if you want the exact story, go play the games, wait for the remakes. If not, you will thoroughly enjoy this. And that's not every Devil May Cry fan, because I am a fan of the games. But the show is good. The show is good. Is it exactly like the original story? No. But is it good? Yes. Dante is Dante. The characters are still relatively the same. It's just the story is slightly different. It is still funny. It is still great. It still has the charm that Devil May Cry has. And I think that's the most important thing, because people are judging it too harshly that it doesn't exactly follow it, which makes no sense. Nobody's fucking making that. Nobody's going to make a show that follows exactly what already exists. It just doesn't make sense. It really does not. So I hate those complaints. Devil May Cry is a phenomenal anime, and it ranks around Dragon Ball. Dragon Ball is a phenomenal anime. Anyway, let's continue. At number 27 here, we have Jujutsu Kaisen. I think JJK is great. I think the problem with it is it's only going to go downhill from here. I think everything we've got animated up to this point is pretty phenomenal, and if you're a manga reader, well, you don't even need to be, because JJK fans are the biggest pieces of shit ever, and they spoil everything. It is the biggest spoiler fan base ever, so you probably know everything that happens, even if you haven't laid a finger on the book. Anyway, that's besides the point. And everything after this, it just really is a downhill slope. I think everything up to this point is pretty phenomenal, and if it stopped right here with some sort of good ending, of course, you could argue the greatest new gen ever. You could, but I know what's coming, and I know that everything after this point is just going to be a downwards hill, and the ending is dog shit. Let's be honest, it's not good. So yeah, that's why JJK ranked here. It is phenomenal of what we got, but hopefully they change it in the anime. I really hope they do. Next at 26, we have Soul Eater. Again, this show is probably one of the coolest shows you will ever watch. Like, if you're a guy that likes cool stuff like me, it's one of the coolest shows ever, and you'll love Soul because he's the same way. But the thing about this show is the ending is horrid. It's horrible. It's terrible, actually so bad. Like, I'm not even kidding. There are 5-year-olds that could write a better ending. If you don't want to be spoiled, skip ahead. But basically, the ending of Soul Eater is, I'm more brave than you, so I win. It kind of makes sense to the villain they're fighting, but at the same time, it makes no fucking sense. You think they don't know what bravery is? You think that the main villain never heard of that before? Also, how does Maka have more bravery than Black Star, than Death the Kid? They just gave up their lives almost doing the same shit she did, but they weren't brave? Huh? Black Star charges headfirst into everything, but he's not brave? Like, the ending of this show is actually horrible. Like, the anime version, it's one of the worst endings I've seen in anime. Now, I heard the manga version is great. So if they redo this with the manga version, this show has potential to be up there. But the anime that we have right now, the current ending, it's just terrible. It's really, really bad. So yeah, but other than that, everything else about it is damn near perfect. But the ending, God, it's awful. Next at 25, we have Ghost in the Shell 1995. Just the best anime movie ever, in my opinion. Now, I haven't seen many anime movies, but this is one I have seen. It's incredible. It has one of the best female main characters, well, hell, straight up main characters ever. The animation for its time was great. I loved the action. The story was so good, and it was the first of its kind at that point. Now, there's a lot of stories that are pretty similar to Ghost in the Shell now, but that's because of how great this movie was. It was beautiful. It was awesome. I highly recommend. Next at 24, we have My Hero Academia. Now, My Hero, I think it has some of the best fights, some of the best animation, some of the best characters in anime history. But my big problem with it, and the reason it never goes higher for me, is just because of Deku. I don't like Deku as the main character. I don't dislike Deku as a character, per se. I think he's pretty mid. My problem with him is when he's fighting people and when he's in action, man, he's great. He's a great character. But half the show, they're not battling, and half the show, they're not in action, and he is arguably like one of the worst characters ever when they're not fighting. He is just a little crybaby bitch. Like, I hate, like, you know, people always say, oh, he's not a crybaby, this is not, look at what he did to do all this. Yeah, he's not a crybaby when he's fighting, which I don't understand how. Like, he would genuinely shed tears because Bakugo says something mean to him, but he won't shed tears after ripping his entire arm in shreds. I don't get it, but he's cool when he's fighting. When he's not fighting, he just acts like a baby, like, oh, Kachan, come hold me. It's terrible. Like, he is such a loser outside of fights, and I hate it. It's so unbearable to watch any of the episodes that don't take place with him fighting. I shouldn't say that. They are easy to get through because the other characters are heavily involved, but man, Deku is just so annoying when he's not fighting. Now, like I said, when he's fighting, phenomenal. Genuinely phenomenal character, but when he's not, oh my god. Next at 23, LeBron number, we have Mashle. I think Mashle is one of the funniest anime ever, and I think the action is really good, and I think the story picking up now actually makes it somewhat interesting. Season 1 was pretty much all comedy. Season 2 is actually mostly story. It wasn't even really that much comedy, and it's been great. I love it. I like the mixture they have here with Mashle. They have a good mixture of, hey, we are a comedy anime, but also we got a little bit of a story going on here too, so that's what I really like about it. I think the reason it does rank so high is because you don't expect it, especially even if you just watch Season 1. Like, you watch Season 1, you're like, okay, it's what I expected, it's pretty funny. Then you go to watch Season 2, it's like, oh, we got a story here. Like, we got something cooking here, right? So I think that the surprise factor as well puts it a little high, but love Mashle. Next at 22, Taylor Swift number, we have GTO. It's honestly pretty similar to Mashle. You think it's just a comedy anime, which for the most part it is. Hilarious. But there is somewhat of a story here in GTO and life lessons. My biggest complaint about GTO is why the fuck did they adapt it like this? They just adapted a random part in the story, which is stupid. I believe it's the beginning of the actual like GTO manga, but if you don't know, there's like a 400 chapter prequel to GTO. And then afterwards, we still have like thousands of chapters, I believe, that still haven't been done. Like, the GTO show barely adapts any of it. I would love for the show to get remade in its entirety. I doubt it'll ever happen, but I would really love that. I mean, the manga, from the stuff I've read most of the prequel. It's pretty great, but yeah, I think that's the biggest downside about GTO. Now, if you didn't know the manga existed and you don't know anything about the manga, you'd watch it and be pleased with this, but you'd be disappointed once you found out all the shit in the manga because, oh boy, it's extensive. Next at 21, we have Pluto. This is made by the guy who made Monster, and I think it has the depth, it has the meaning, it has the storytelling and the character development of Monster. Not quite as good, to be honest, but it's paced incredibly better. And I think a big thing for Pluto as well, the reason why it's lower for me is because I don't really care about the android tech shit like we talked about mechs and stuff like that. Pluto's not mechs, but it is similar, and I don't really care about it. But he somehow made me care about it in this show. It's genuinely phenomenal, way better than I expected it to be. And it's honestly just kind of like a worse monster. The stories aren't really similar, but like the vibe you get is a little bit worse monster, but it's paced a whole lot better. And to me, I never realized how important pacing is until I watched shows like Pluto and Monster made by the same guy. They give off similar vibes, and the pacing of Pluto is just a lot more incredible for me. So that's why I ranked here. Next at 20, we have Bungo Stray Dogs. I love Bungo. I think it's honestly one of the most underrated shows you will hear about. Now, the Bungo Glazers, I'm not going to lie, half of them are LARPers, dude. They haven't seen the show, so ignore those people, please, because you'll see some very cringe Bungo people, and they don't even know shit about the show, I'll be honest. But the show is phenomenal. It has some of the greatest characters in anime. I realize I'm saying that a lot, but I love character work, man, but that's besides the point. My problem with Bungo, and the reason why it's not top 10, because it does everything right except the one thing, and that's it relies on basic tropes a little too much. Like, every basic trope you could think of except mechs, which honestly might come in next fucking season, they've used it. They've used every basic trope there is. Now, I will say they actually do most of them fairly well, but I think they should just in general stay away from the basic tropes, I'll be honest. Like, you could just do a lot better. Especially because some of the arcs are like so creative. It's like, why are we putting these basic ass tropes in here? Like, you did a phenomenal job all the way up to this point, and they're still good, and they don't ruin the story at all. But it's like, man, we could have just been on a bigger roll here. But at 19, we have Death Parade. My opinion, best 12-episode anime of all time. I mean, this show is so incredibly emotional. It is just beautiful. Now, I might have another one like above it, but I'm speaking. Well, I don't know. We'll see. Maybe it's not the highest 12-episode anime show, but I think it is. Well, who cares? Great show, super emotional. I think it's like really the best show when it dives into the thought of like what humanity really is, like what it means to be human. I think this is the only show that really does that, at least that I've watched, and it's great. So highly recommend. Next at 18, we have Kagurabachi. This manga is phenomenal. Everything you hear about it, it's true. Yes, it was a meme before it started to say it's like the greatest manga ever. Yes, it was a meme to say enough time has passed. Yes, a lot of the glaze for Kagurabachi is memes, but there's a lot of truth to it. Kagurabachi, if I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong, I could be off by like a week or two, but Kagurabachi's been in the top 10 for manga every single week since it came out, besides like 1 or 2 weeks. That's genuinely phenomenal. That's not a meme that carries that. And I've read quite a lot of it. I think I read like the first 30 chapters maybe, and I own like volumes like 1 through 5, like the little paper one. I think they're volumes. I don't know how. I don't really read manga physically, so I don't know, but I own them physically, like all the Kagurabachi ones that are in the States. I own them, and it's great. It is so good. It is really, really one of the best stories. Now, a lot of people you'll see hate on it. They'll say some bullshit like, it's a basic revenge story, we've seen it a million times before. It's not. It's not like any other revenge story. It really is its own thing. I love the power system. The artwork as well is incredible. Honestly, it's phenomenal. If you've never read Kagurabachi, and even if you don't want to read it, I really ask you look at the artwork, because he does it weekly, by the way, and he revealed in an interview, or his editor did, he does all the drawings in one day. Go look at the Kagurabachi drawings. He does all that in one day. He spends 6 days of the week writing the story, and then on the 7th day, he draws all of it. And go look at how amazing it is. He does all of it in one day, and it looks that good. Genuinely generational artist. Seriously. But yeah, I can't wait for this anime. It's going to be phenomenal. Next at 17, we have Samurai Champloo. This is a great work by Watanabe, as most of them are. But with Samurai Champloo, you know, obviously this is a very influential anime. Again, I don't rate shit off influential, though. The story is great. I wish the ending had a little bit more closure. But overall, it's just a very solid watch. It's got good depth to it. It's got good emotion to it. There's not really anything bad to say about it, but I'm not going to act like it's the greatest thing ever. I think the best part of the show is the 3 main characters. They are all phenomenal characters. The story of the show is decent. I do wish the ending was slightly better with more closure, because I'm not going to say what it is, but it just kind of ends, I feel like. Like, you don't really know what happens after. So, yeah, that's my only kind of complaint, but it's still a good ending as well. Next at 16, we have To Be Hero X. I know this is very high for a new show. It's actually the only show I watched that came out last year that was new, if that makes sense. And I watched it because I saw all the ratings for the episodes, and it was like every episode was getting above a 9 for a while, and then eventually you had like a couple that were like an 8 or whatever, and I was like, dude, that's one of the highest rated anime ever. I actually might blame this show for the reason that everything gets so overrated, because every time I see new anime drop and it's like, oh, every episode's over a 9, like that, I feel like that didn't really happen until To Be Hero X. I could be wrong, you know, I don't really pay attention to ratings much, and you really shouldn't because they don't matter, but this show was getting so many high ratings when it came out, and now I've noticed it with other shows, and so I had to watch it. And I went into it thinking, there's no way it's that good. It's that good. It really is that good. Like, imagine, this is for my more American watchers, no other people watch it, but imagine The Boys, right? You know, the Amazon Prime show. You know, it's realistic superheroes or whatever, but let's be honest, The Boys isn't really that realistic because it goes super vulgar and just super obscene. To Be Hero X is basically realistic superheroes like The Boys, but more realistic. It is more realistic because you're not just going to have all the gore fest like you do in The Boys. There is gore in To Be Hero X. There is killing. There is corruption. There's a lot of bad shit that does happen in To Be Hero X, but it feels more natural, where a lot of The Boys stuff can feel forced. Still love The Boys, by the way. It's not about that, though. But yeah, all the stuff you heard about this show and about how amazing it is, it's true. It is really, really good. Moving on to number 15, we have Hunter x Hunter. Now, this show was in my top 10 for a long time, and you may be wondering why it moved out. And that's just because I just haven't seen any of it for a while. Like, genuinely, this show, it just gets hurt so much because I don't even think we're halfway through the story of the show. And to me, that really sucks, but we've only seen Gon's part of the story, really. Gon and probably Killua. We still have Kurapika and Leorio to go, so that's at least, we maybe finished half of the show. And the more I think about it, and the more I watch shows that are actually finished, an ending is arguably the most important part of every story. And the fact we may never get a Hunter x Hunter one is kind of why it ranks so low, but it's a perfect story. Let's be honest. I just think there's so much missing. That's why it ranks so low. It is a perfect story, though. I can't think of a bad thing about Hunter x Hunter other than, hey, we're still missing half of it, and hey, there's no ending. Can we get that? I know the guy's sick, and you know, I'm wishing the best for him and everything like that, but until that comes out, it's hard for me to keep it in the top 10 with all these other shows wrapping up and finishing. Next at 14, we have Hajime no Ippo. Similar thing to Hunter x Hunter, except it's pretty much confirmed this show will never get an ending, ever. The manga will, but I don't think I could be bothered to read the thousands of chapters of Hajime no Ippo, even though it is a phenomenal show and arguably perfect show as well. It'll never finish, ever. So, yeah, and the manga doesn't get printed in English either, so I would have to be reading thousands of chapters online. I can't be bothered to do it, I'm not going to lie. But Ippo, it's perfect sports anime, greatest sports anime of all time, hands down, but it'll never finish, so that's why it's not higher. Next at 13, we have Erased. Now, I believe Erased is 13 episodes. That's why I didn't want to confirm or not that Death Parade was the best 12 episode, because I'm pretty sure Erased is 13, not 12. I could be wrong, though. It might be 12. Erased, to me, it just is such a beautiful and emotional story, and very unique story with good storytelling, right? And I think a big thing that for Erased, like a lot of people might not have it this high, is that it's kind of predictable for a mystery show, and it is. I'm not gonna lie, it is predictable. If you try to predict the outcome of this show, you probably can. Like, it's not that crazy of an ending, and for a mystery show, you normally want it to be crazy. But for some reason, it doesn't matter in this show. Like, you still get all the emotion. You still get, not really the shock factor, but you get the surprise factor still. Even though you know it's coming. Like, you know who the bad guy is. You know what's going to happen, yet it still hits the same. So, I think that's why it ranks so high for me, is because it's a mystery without mystery that still captures all the essence of a mystery. I don't know how that's possible, but it is, and it's great. I love Erased, and this is what a good mystery should be. Of course, I would like for there to be a little bit more shock factor, but a lot of mysteries do shock factor just for the sake of it. This show did not, and it worked incredibly well. But moving on to number 12, we have Fire Force. Fire Force just wrapped up. I genuinely think it is phenomenal. I think Shinra is one of the greatest main characters ever. I think Arthur is one of the greatest side characters ever. Honestly, the whole cast of Fire Force is phenomenal. Animation was great, ending was great, and all that. The reason why it's not higher for me, because at this point, all of these shows I would consider probably 10 out of 10 anime for sure at this point. Well, that probably started at Hunter x Hunter. All these shows I'd consider 10 out of 10 anime. Reason why it's not higher, it does get a little repetitive that every single power is fire related, so I guess that's literally it. At number 11 here, we have Code Geass. Love Code Geass. Absolutely phenomenal anime. Really, really good. My problem with Code Geass, because, again, everything at this point is, you could argue it's perfect, and I'd probably agree. My only problem is there are some episodes in the middle sections of each part that can be a little slow, if that makes sense. Like, the beginning and start of each season, perfect. You literally can't argue anything. Like, it is perfect. It's just some of the episodes in the middle of the season, and it might seriously be 2 or 3 episodes the whole show. They can be a little bit slow. They're not bad, they're just a little slow, so yeah, that's just why it's not higher. I mean, it's hard, like I said. We're at the point now where all these shows are damn near perfect, so this is just real personal preference. Next at 10, we have Trigun 1998. Not the new shit. That new shit is garbage. And I do have the Trigun manga as well, but I didn't rank it because I'm only like 3 chapters in. Anyway, we have the Trigun anime, though, from 1998. It is really, really beautiful. I'm not going to lie. The storytelling, the characters, the scenery, everything like that. Even the voice acting is great. The animation's not really that good for its time. Like, there's definitely better from the 90s, like, but still, it's 90s. I don't really care. Yeah, at this point, Vash, super relatable character for me, and I think the story is super unique. The closest thing to it to me is probably Cowboy Bebop, and they're not even that similar. Like, Trigun's a thing of its own. Really recommend it to anybody. Next at number 9 here, we have Yu Yu Hakusho. To me, it feels like it gives off similar vibes to Hunter x Hunter. It's definitely its own thing. Like, they don't feel the exact same or follow the same path, but it's similar vibes. They're made by the same guy, so it makes sense, but this show is finished. And I love the ending of Yu Yu Hakusho. People will argue that it's bad. I 100% disagree. I think the ending of Yu Yu Hakusho is arguably one of the greatest endings in anime history. I completely disagree with people not liking the ending. I think the ending of Yu Yu is fantastic. It's phenomenal. And this is a 10 out of 10 show. This show is perfect. And I think it's one of the oldest anime ever and is one of the most influential. Again, don't really care about the influential shit, but you watch this, you will enjoy this. I don't know anybody that dislikes Yu Yu Hakusho because it's a 10 out of 10 show. It's perfection. Next, at number 8, we have The God of High School. This is for the manhwa/webtoon, not the anime. The anime cuts out so much shit. And I remember I watched the anime and I thoroughly enjoyed it, so I was like, I'm gonna read it. I started reading it, bro chacho. Even the part that is animated is a million times better in the fucking webtoon/manhwa. Like, it is so much better. Oh my god, this story has some of the greatest fights ever. And in a drawing to say that is crazy. Like, the detail in the fights, phenomenal. It's all in color too, which is a plus for me. I can read stuff in black and white. As you saw, I read like Holy Land and stuff like that. I don't have an issue with black and white, but it being in color is a plus for me. And yeah, it's great, man. Oh my god, some of the greatest characters ever. Ymira, in my opinion, the greatest female character in all of fiction. Just phenomenal character. Daewoo Han, Jin Mori. Hell, even the character that's based off the devil himself, Satan. He's honestly a great character. Like, this manhwa is phenomenal, and I'm really, really, really disappointed. As you guys know, it's one of my most popular videos is my disappointment with the God of High School anime, because, God, they had the source material of, like, one of the greatest things ever written, genuinely, and they turned it into that somehow. Like, people will watch the anime and think it's solid. Dude, I'm telling you, the manhwa's a million, like, literally a million times better. It's not even an exaggeration. Genuinely one of the greatest stories I've ever read. Might be the greatest story I've read, because I don't read much, and this in entirety I did read, and yeah, it's up there, man. I don't know, there's some competition, but man, yeah, God of High School, fantastic. Next at 7, we have Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood. This is arguably a perfect anime. Well, like I said, a lot of this stuff at this point is arguably perfect. But Fullmetal, the reason it ranks so high for me is I damn near cried every single episode. Even the episodes where it wasn't sad, like the happy moments in Fullmetal make you want to cry. It's one of the most emotional shows you'll ever watch. The emotion behind Fullmetal Alchemist it could be, no, it might be second to one. Maybe, I don't know. You could debate any of these. I mean, this could be number 1. No, my number 1 and 2 are definitely levels ahead of everything else. Like, even though everything here is perfect, my 1 and 2, I just don't see anything catching those. But everything from this point to number 3, Fullmetal could be there. I mean, it's great. At number 6, we have Mob Psycho 100. Probably the only other show I would say that is more emotional than Full Metal. It's another show, every episode genuinely tears up, but season 3 of Mob Psycho is genuinely the greatest season of anime I've ever watched in my entire life. Like, I bawled my eyes out at the last episode. Dude, I'm even getting emotional now thinking about that final episode. That's the most emotional episode in all of anime. I'm stand by that. Thinking about it, like, I literally have goosebumps now. I'm not even joking. Like, I'm being so serious. Like, that ending to Mob Psycho, it's beautiful. That's all you can say about the show. It's beautiful. And if you haven't seen it, man, you've got to watch it. The ending, oh man, it's got me kind of emotional now. So let's move on to number 5. Number 5, we're in the top 5 now. We have Cowboy Bebop. This really ranks so high for me. I do think it is a phenomenal show, but Spike Spiegel is the most relatable character to me in anything. I actually, probably just most relatable thing ever in my life. I relate more to Spike than I have anything in real life. I relate more to Spike than I have in any other piece of fiction. To me, Spike, I feel like I am Spike. Like, a lot of times, I feel like I'm very similar to him. So to me, yeah, I don't really know what else to say. I mean, the reason it got this high is just because Spike and the rest of the show is great too. Super great storytelling, super funny. Some of the best music in all of anime. Faye Valentine, top 5 female character ever, just super phenomenal. But yeah, Spike, I just relate to so much. Like, seriously, the most relatable thing in my life. So that's why it's top 5. Next at number 4, we have One Piece. I mean, this show, it's arguably the most entertaining show ever. Now, there are shows with more depth than One Piece, which is why I do have stuff higher than it. But One Piece, to me, you have 1,000 episodes, and there might be 20 that aren't good. Like, and that's saying something, man. It's what? They're like on 1,300 something, no? And there's like 10 episodes that aren't really enjoyable. Like, that's crazy. That's crazy, not including filler, by the way. Like, canon stuff, there's like 10 episodes that aren't good, at least in my opinion. And I think this show is just super entertaining. Like, the fights are always going to be good. The action's always going to be good. Even the comedy is pretty funny, right? But I would be lying if I said, like, it was the most in-depth show. Like, there are shows that just have way more depth to their characters, way better character development, and overall more plot progression. I mean, we are 1,300 episodes in, and they still ain't even close to the One Piece, let's be honest. But yeah, I mean, it's probably the most entertaining show ever, just being honest. The entertainment there is beyond the chart. It's like off the charts. Next at number 3, we have Black Clover. This is one that ranks so highly for me, mainly because of Asta. I do really love the story of Black Clover. Now, I do actually have a complaint about it, which is weird. I don't really care for a lot of the villains in Black Clover, to be honest, but the reason it makes it so high for me is the characters in the show are all relatable in some way, which is nice because, like, we talked about Cowboy Bebop being so high because it's super relatable for me and Spike, but I do only relate to Spike. You can genuinely relate to a lot of the characters in Black Clover. Like, they are very fleshed out characters. They feel real. A lot of them feel real. In a show about fucking magic, they all feel real, which is crazy. There are live action TV shows you can watch about real people and real stories that feel more fake than this. Like, that's how well fleshed out some of the characters are. But the biggest thing for me is this show is so motivational for me. If I'm having a rough time, if I need to lock in, if I need to go to the gym, if I want to be a better person, I can watch an episode of Black Clover and I will immediately be ready to jump off this chair and go do whatever the fuck I need to do. So that's why it's so high for me. It's just so motivational for me. I think it's a phenomenal story and all that, but the motivation I get from watching this, it's second to none. I will be honest. It makes me want to work the hardest out of any show I've ever seen. So that's why it ranks so high. Next at number 2, now the top 2 in my opinion, I just don't see anything ever dethroning these two. After watching these, they're levels ahead. But at number 2, we have JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. I think JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is perfect. And I think the reason why, and you'll see this is similar to my number 1, is characters. I think characters are the most important thing in a story because you can have some story elements that aren't the greatest, and JoJo's is familiar with that. You know, a lot of people don't really like part 1. I personally do like part 1. I think part 2 is the one I'm a little more iffy on because I don't care for the Pillarmen, but even then the characters are so phenomenal that, like, it could be bad and it's still super good to watch because the characters are so good. Now the story for most of the parts is just genuinely phenomenal and you don't even have to worry about anything being bad. I think the first 2 parts are probably objectively the worst 2 parts. Not my 2 least favorites by any means. I mean, I've done JoJo part rankings before. You guys know if you've been here. But for me, the thing with JoJo's is, like, God, the characters are great. they're so great. And then each part, the story is so different and so amazing at the same time. The design's great. It is perfect. The other shows below it, I could maybe argue some things about it, but there's also relatable characters in JoJo. It's just perfect, right? But I do have one show above it that I do think is the greatest show of all time, and here we go with number one. We have Naruto. To me, Naruto is just the greatest anime ever, and I don't think anything will ever change that. I just don't see any show having the relatability, the emotion, the animation, the fights, the storytelling, the plot, the development of everybody, like mainly the characters, the relatability, the emotion, like all that. Like, I know I just said it all again, but I think it just does all of that better than every show ever. Like, with JoJo's, you could argue that it has the best characters in all of anime, but everything else, it's kind of hard to argue it as much. Like, I don't think JoJo's has the best stories in anime. Like, it doesn't. Naruto, it has the best story, in my opinion. Characters, I think it has the best characters. The only one you could argue for me is JoJo's. And then, like, plot twist, by far the best plot twist in anime history. I mean, there are so many iconic ones that have literally served to influence hundreds of different stories. Like, the plot twists are amazing. Animation, to this day, I don't think it's the best, but to this day, it has some of the best animation now. You see every punch, you see every kick for its time. 100% the best animation. I don't even think you can argue that. It was the best animation when it came out, for sure. And then, like, other stuff too, the emotion. I do think Mob Psycho and Fullmetal are more emotional shows. But for a show that lasts this long and you feel emotional about so many characters, there's so many points where you can cry in Naruto because you feel connected. I don't know if there's any show that connects you to so many characters, and that's one complaint about Naruto that I always hated and never got. People are like, oh, well, they gave up on some of the characters, or some of the characters get left behind. Brother, there are at least 50 characters in this show that you can get emotionally attached to pretty easily. There are 50 fleshed out characters at least in this show, which is crazy. That is some of the best writing you can ever do. And a big one here, people will complain about Rock Lee. And now I know that, like, people like Rock Lee Kiba, like the Konoha Crush team or whatever, they were supposed to die. They weren't supposed to make it. But that's not even the reason why. Like, brother, you had a whole show about, like, Rock Lee has the greatest fight in anime history, in my opinion. Rock Lee has one of the greatest moments in anime history. Like, Rock Lee, he did a lot. Yeah, is he important in Shippuden and he's probably your favorite character? No, he's not really important in Shippuden. Still might be your favorite character, sure. But you got other characters. That's like Rock Lee gets replaced by somebody like Obito. Obito's one of the best written characters ever. Madara, the greatest villain of all time, in my opinion. You get more depth on Sasuke. You get more depth on Naruto. Sure, you miss out on a lot of characters that you liked, but you get 10 plus more with what's to come. And so, to me, that Boruto being that low is genuinely a crime, because Naruto, to me, is just the greatest piece of media, greatest piece of fiction ever. I just don't see anything beating Naruto. I could watch the show a million times and enjoy it every single time. Yeah, I actually do have a complaint about Naruto, but the rest of it's so good that it just doesn't matter. I don't like the ending of Naruto. I think Kaguya coming out was stupid. And I genuinely think it's one of the worst endings in anime, but that is how good Naruto is. You could have told me the ending was dog shit or the show never ended, I would still watch the show a million times. The ending can ruin it, sure. Actually, it can't ruin it. That's what I'm trying to say. The ending can't ruin it. It's bad, but it's the greatest thing ever. Like, it really is. But if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, subscribe. Obviously, if you're still at this point, you're kind of the GOAT. But leave your top 5 anime below, top 10 anime below. I'd like to see your guys' opinions. I like to talk about anime, so yeah, I hope to see you guys in a future video. Peace.